weekly program about important issues and events in the two Virginias.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this edition of In Focus. This morning, we're going to be talking about fire safety tips, things that you and your family need to know to keep you safe inside your homes. And also, if you're outdoors looking ahead, camping, some fire safety tips there. And we've encountered some severe weather as well over the summer, and we'll have some tips for you on what to do in case you encounter severe weather at your home, like downed trees, power lines, things like that. So joining us on set right now to share some more information and insight, we have Captain David Thompson and his father, same name, Chief David Thompson, with the Green Valley-Glenwood Volunteer Fire Department. And they're also going to share some information about shortages and some issues that are facing volunteer firefighters, not just here in West Virginia, but nationwide. So gentlemen, thank you both for joining us this morning.
Glad to be here, appreciate it.
So Captain Thompson, I'll start with you. Let's share some fire safety tips for folks inside their homes. I know smoke detectors are absolutely key.
Smoke detectors are. What we try to recommend people is when you change your clocks, change your batteries. You know, and every month try to do a little test on them. They get a little test button on it, set it off, make sure it works. If you start getting any false hits on it, like, you know, it would be just a small little chirp or something like that, not battery chirp, take it outside and let it breathe. A lot of the smoke detectors, including carbon monoxide detectors, need to be recalibrated so often because the way their makeup is, can get dust in there and give you false readings sometimes.
And also, Chief Thompson, what tips would you have for folks to stay safe in their homes, or what should they do in case they do encounter a fire in that unfortunate circumstance?
If you do encounter a fire, the first thing you want to do is make sure everybody gets out. Call 911 to make sure that the fire department is coming. If you have a stove fire, something that you're cooking and catches on fire, cut the heat off and take a lid and slide it over top of the pan. That will save, that will basically put the fire out. That will stop the fire. Fire department gets there, get the smoke and stuff out of your house and stuff. They do a lot of minimal damage. If you just leave it open, you're going to catch your cabinets on fire, smoke up the whole house. And one thing you do not ever want to do if you've got a stove or a stove fire with a skillet or something is grab that skillet and take it to the sink, throw it in the sink. One, you're going to get the grease and stuff on you. And two, when you throw it in the sink, turn the water on, it causes the water to blow the grease out and you're going to spread the fire. So if it's on the stove, leave it on the stove. You can slide it off the eye, cut the eye down, and then slide a lid over it. That'll cover the fire. It'll put it right out, and it's a lot safer for you and saves your house.
Yeah, and you're talking about like cooking fires, things like that. It reminds me of grilling, because I know a lot of folks are grilling this summer. So Captain Thompson, what about safety tips if someone is grilling outside?
Well, if you've got a fire in a grill, the quickest and easiest way to do it, shut the lid and turn off, and go ahead and turn off the burners. You still want to maintain the heat inside. Whatever fire's going to be in is going to be contained within the grill lid. And with you turning off the burner, it's going to stop producing the gas to make it hotter. So once you relieve the heat source, you know, you're going to smother the fire out with the grill lid.
And Chief Thompson, what if someone does encounter a fire, like say they're in a room and the fire's outside their room and they're on the second floor? What should they do in that circumstance?
If they're inside and there's a fire, before you ever open the door or anything, check that door for heat. If the door's hot, leave it shut. If you've got anything you can put under the door to make sure smoke doesn't come in, you can do that. And then go to a window or something and try to exit. If you can't get out the window that way, at least open it up, let them people know where you are. They can set a ladder for you. If you have children or something, or people would normally sleep upstairs, it's good to have the little rescue ladders that you can put out the window and come down. And those are the few things that you can do. But the biggest thing is, if you feel it, check the door, and if the door's hot, do not leave the room. Do not open it, spread it further.
Okay, and I know, like, with folks with kids at home, what about having a fire safety plan in case something like this does happen? What should parents or grandparents know if they have small kids living with them?
Well, what they should do is have fire drills. They do the same drills in the schools right now. So fire alarm goes off, everybody gets up, goes outside, and has a roll call. These same drills need to be done in their home. And you can do a rough drawing of the layout of your home and have, you know, if you're in bedroom upstairs, this is your main exit path to be down the steps, out the door, and draw it on there with pencil or marker. And then have a secondary exit. And then when you practice these drills at home, start from laying in bed. Because what you're doing, if you practice it multiple times, you're building muscle memory. And, you know, when in a stressful situation, the body will go in overdrive, in automatic mode. And when you do that, you know, whatever you've been practicing of how to go out your residence, and so you're going from your bed, your smoke detector goes off, you come out of the bed, you crawl to the door, you're feeling the door for heat, and then once the door's cool, you're out down the steps or however at your residence. And then once you get out, find a place, a solid place like a tree or a landmark, and something's going to be there permanently. Not like, you know, the neighbor's car, because he may or may not be at work.
Yeah.
And then once you get to that place, you do your roll call. That way, when we get there, you know, we check and say, hey, who's inside? Everybody's out. Then your roll call's done, everybody's taken care of, but we change our tactics. Instead of going for rescue, we're going for fire operations.
Okay. Now, what if someone has a pet in the house, cats, dogs? How do pets react to fires? Do they hide? What should folks know about having a cat or dog inside their home if a fire does happen?
A lot of times the cat or dog, if they've got an exit, they will naturally try to get out. If they panic too, just like children would, sometimes they can't, so they'll go and hide. If you don't ever want to go back after a pet. If you can take it with you when you go, fine. Don't ever go back after a pet, because, you know, I'm going to say pets are expendable, but it's not, it's better than a child. Yeah. But we will go in and look for the pet if we know the pet's in there. We will rescue it just like we would a child if we know they're in there, if we can. But don't take off and go back inside. If you're already out, don't go back inside to get a pet, just because we don't want to have two things to go look for.
Yeah. What are some of the common causes of fires that you all have seen in your experience here in Mercer County? What's caused some of these house fires that you've encountered?
The biggest one's cooking issues. Is, you know, like Chief was talking about, you have a cooking incident. The biggest one, people put something on the stove and they forget about it. Or the latest one is everybody gets on the telephone. And so whatever you're doing, now that you're cooking, it's getting bigger, and then they don't know there's an issue till the smoke detector goes off, and then they panic and spread the fire across the house because they grab the pan and try to run to either the nearest exit or the sink. That's the biggest one. There is some mechanical, you know, like electrical issues, but it's not as common as your cooking issues.
And how many calls has your volunteer fire department, Green Valley-Glenwood, responded to like so far this year? Do you all have that number?
181 calls as of today.
And how many volunteers do you have with your fire department?
18 right now.
18. Now, I do want to get into some of like the staffing shortages and other issues with rising gas costs. We have to take a quick break, but I do want to address that right after this break. We'll be right back. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to this edition of In Focus. This morning, we've been talking about fire safety tips to keep you and your family safe if you do encounter a fire, the importance of smoke detectors, and we're going to get more into how volunteer firefighters combat severe weather damage like downed trees and stuff like that in just a bit, and also wildfire dangers. But first, I do want to talk to both of you about some of the challenges that you're seeing as volunteer firefighters. Like, let's talk about like the rising gas costs, staff shortages, and some other issues. Captain?
Well, the biggest issue that we've got is staffing. Because, you know, with the way the economy's going and everything's going up and paying, the jobs are not going up equivalently, is people working 2 or 3 jobs. And to be able to make ends meet. So they don't have time to come out and volunteer their time to protect their community, to protect their neighbors.
And Chief, what would you add to what he just said?
Well, the biggest thing we have is our volunteer fire department, firefighters, not only here, but in all of Mercer County and all of, mostly I think in West Virginia that I know of, they are strictly volunteers. We receive no pay for anything, compensated no which way, not at all. We drive our own vehicles, we use our own gas to get to station and back. We have to spend our time training. Training is a big deal, because if you don't train good, you can't work good. And so we're looking at a lot of time that we're asking for people to volunteer for their community, and the only thing they get back is once in a while is a thank you from the people.
Right, and that's the case in West Virginia, but in Virginia, firefighters do get compensated?
In some municipalities and some of the fire department districts, they are paid for run call time. We call, they paid so much per call that they run on. In West Virginia, we get no compensation for that.
Let's talk about increasing gas prices as well. How has that impacted responses and everything?
It's really, well, our personnel, we have to use our own gas. So we pay for our own gas to get from our work, our home to the firehouse. And then the raising costs with the fire service is, diesel is outrageous right now. And every one of our apparatus are diesel powered. So, every time you run one of these trucks, you're looking very poor fuel mileage. I mean, so your more expenses on the fuel, your expense on your gasolines for your pumps and different things we do. So it's actually a lot of departments are actually toning back on what they're going to respond to. They call them nuisance calls. They're actually not pulling a fire apparatus and running a POV to it.
Like a
personal vehicle.
Personal vehicle to it, okay. Now, who budgets for like diesel and all of that? Is that the county, or how does that work?
We've got fire service fee in Mercer County funds about 3/4 or 2/3 of what the fire departments get each year. We also get an insurance from your homeowner's insurance and your vehicle insurance. We get approximately $46,000 a year to operate from that fund. And then the county fund, which is you pay fire service fees, that money comes into the county and is broke down to where the fire departments are getting anywhere from $40,000 to on up. I think our department gets somewhere in the neighborhood of $66,000, $67,000. We have to operate, that's all of our workman's comp, that's our insurance, our wear and tear on the vehicles, repair breakdowns, everything, fuel costs, everything we do comes out of this money. And so you have to pinch pennies tight when your gas and diesel fuel and stuff's went up so high that we went from it's 4 times what it was this time last year, and no increase in money. This is the same money we get, and it puts a strain on the departments just to operate. But everybody has to figure out where every dollar needs to go, and every dollar has to go somewhere, and just hoping that you have enough to finish the year out.
Yeah. And back to the shortages of volunteer firefighters, would you say that's also a nationwide problem, not just here in West Virginia,
That's a nationwide problem, not just in the volunteer, but also in the paid. Because I know, one of the local departments had a hiring test, and they used to be getting 30 to 40 guys or folks show up to do these tests. I think the last test they had was like 6 people showed up.
Wow.
And it's just,
Why is that, do you think? Why?
Well, the worst part, and if you're going on the paid side, is West Virginia statistically is the lowest paid for firefighters in the nation.
Wow.
It's literally the lowest one of the nation for paid firefighters. You go anywhere away from here, it's, you're not going to get rich being a fireman, but you can make a living. And then on the volunteer side, like we said before, people are working 2 and 3 jobs and just don't have the time.
So how would you bring about change in West Virginia to have compensation, or, how would that even happen here?
Things have got to come from legislation. When it comes to volunteer fire departments, even the paid side, the city charges fees for the cities to operate, and that's where their funding comes from. And there's taxes and there's different things for them. When it comes to the volunteers, we depend on the legislature to be able to give us or to allow us to do what we can as far as funding. We are working in Mercer County right now to try to get, we have junior programs in a lot of departments where you can start at 16 and then be a full firefighter at 18. And we're trying right now to get it in Mercer County VOTEC and do it so you can see kids can get it as a career. And they can go take that class and volunteer at a department during their school for extra credit. Gets their feet wet, lets them get trained and learn the job, and hopefully it'll get it in their blood and they want to stay. Or if they want to make a career out of it, they can go into career firefighter as to do that. The career people, like I said, with the pay being low, they can't get people to come out to take the test to do stuff like they used to. And until that changes, just the fire service all the way around is just in a bad shape.
So what does the test involve, and what does it take exactly to become a firefighter then?
For the volunteer side, most of them, you bring your application in, you get voted on. Before you can even get on the rig or apparatus you have to be Firefighter 1 certified, which for the state of West Virginia is a 120-hour course, that course entails Firefighter 1, Hazmat Awareness and Ops, and that's a state regulation. Before you can even get on the truck to run any calls, you have to have this class.
Where is that class held?
There is various instructors throughout the county that will actually teach it, which is usually in one of the fire stations. We try to have one in our station every January, if possible.
So if someone out there watching, maybe they're interested in learning more or becoming a volunteer firefighter, what's the first step? Who should they get in touch with? How do they start?
Just contact your local fire department. If you're a volunteer and whatever your department is that covers your area, that's really where you need to be, to protect yourself, your family and stuff. Come to that fire department. You can give them a call. You can find out when they're having meetings. You can come to the meetings, fill out an application. They'll do the process that each department has different processes. So, ours, we put everybody on a 4-week standard. They come every 4 weeks. Once we see whether we want them, and if they see if they want us, sees how we operate and everything, then we vote them on a 90-day probation and make them firefighters. Then we start getting the process of getting training done and things like that. But like I said, we offer training for everything it needs to be trained for. We just need the people to take them and be willing to do it and have the time to do it.
And what is the time commitment?
Well, what the state requires and what we require ourselves is our men, once you get Firefighter 1 certified, you're expected to have 12 hours of continued ed. So every year you need at least 12 hours of training. And then with the regulations, to be considered active firefighter, 10 hours a month.
Okay.
Which that includes your calls, your meetings, and everything else, 10 hours a month, which if you come, most departments, if you go to their meetings are 3 hours long, you're looking 12 hours. And that's a Thursday night for us, 7 to 10, and you get 12 hours right now, and that keeps you active. Then everything else, like all your calls, you're looking, a car wreck takes you an hour, give or take. Structure fire, maybe 2 to 3 hours, depends how big it is. And so it ain't hard to keep your hours up.
Yeah, all right. Well, we have much more information to share, including about, again, the severe weather and how gentlemen like both the Daves respond to severe weather problems with power outages, down trees, things like that. So we'll have more on that, and also outdoor fire risks coming up. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. This morning we've been talking about fire safety tips and also some of the challenges facing volunteer fire departments. I want to get back into some more tips for folks at home. Let's talk a little bit about if someone's out camping and they have a fire. What are some of the things they need to be aware of if they're out in the great outdoors having a fire or a fire pit?
One thing is make sure your fire pit has some clearing around it. It's recommended at least even a campfire or even a little brush fire, like you're burning lawn debris, at least 10 feet clearing around it. Because what that'll do, that gives you that space before it gets to something like the woods or something that's going to take off. And make sure that you're going to do this stuff, the wind's not whipping outside. Calm winds keeps you comfortable, but also keeps the fire from getting crazy.
Well, how about paying attention to burn laws too? I mean, that's another big one.
Right. Well, the burn laws right now in the state of West Virginia, you can legally burn anytime outside that you want to. Then in 1st of October until December the 31st, and then March the 1st until May 31st, you're limited to 5 p.m. in the afternoon and burn up till 7 o'clock the next morning. Anytime there's a fire there, that you have to stay present. Somebody has to be with that fire anytime it's burning. You can also, your outside fires, you cannot burn just anything you want to. If it's anything that's been processed through a sawmill, paper mill, whatever, can no longer be burned outside. You can't burn household trash. Legally, you can't burn paper. You can't burn cardboard. You can't burn plywood. Stuff that's got glue in it or it's been bleached and cleaned, and all put stuff out in the air. And the Clean Air Act of 2009 established what you can burn and can't burn outside. And those things they have to be in their natural state. Leaves, tree limbs, bushes, anything like that that's in its natural state can be burnt. But if it's been to any kind of processing, it can no longer be burnt outside.
And how do you all respond to brush fires, and what causes them? Is it typically like really dry conditions? What triggers like a brush fire that spreads?
The biggest cause of brush fires is man-made issues, whether they're having a outside burn right now, like they're burning and they let it get out of hand, or just negligence of like the right conditions. A cigarette can still light them. Just a lot of them's man-made. We do have some that's dealt with, like the railroad may cause it, where they're grinding the tracks in the prime conditions. But that's the biggest ones. I mean, you get some natural occurrences like lightning, but in this area, it's very rare.
And when you all do get a call for like a brush fire, what's your first plan of attacking it and putting it out?
Well, the first thing we do, we respond to the scene to see what we have. We automatically roll our brush truck, which has 800 gallons of water and all the equipment we need to fight fire with, and then our manpower. Then we go and check and see how big the fire is, where it's at, where its location, and have a game plan, a plan of attack with the number of people we have. If we see we've got a big fire and we've got few people, we call out for mutual aid, which is another department or something in the area, plus forestry. Forestry has a crew to come out that can help with if they're not fighting somewhere already. You know, the forestry spread pretty thin and they cover like 3 or 4 or 5 counties all around here. So sometimes you can get them and sometimes you can't. Most of the time, if they're available, they'll be here and help. But the biggest thing is getting people to the fire and get ahead of it, up to the head, and stop it, and then work it back down. Because if you let the head go, it's just going to keep getting bigger. So, but that's the way you got to fight them. And you chainsaws, blowers, rakes, just everything you can in stages in order to contain them.
All right, and I know you all also, with severe weather, you respond to downed trees, blocking roads, things like that. So explain how you all go about tackling removing downed trees and other issues caused by severe weather.
Well, with the downed trees, we try to go for the most traveled road. So like if your secondary roads are going to be the last ones we get to. So your main thoroughfares, we hit those, and you just, with a tree, you really just won't go from the outside in, go from the smallest to the largest, and do what you can do. Try to cut them up small enough so you guys can manage it, because we don't bring dozers or anything like that unless we get DOH to help us out.
Now, what if someone has like a downed tree in their yard? What are some things they should be aware of? I know like power lines might be a problem.
Power lines are an issue, because if a tree comes down, there's power lines, cable lines, phone lines, everything could be wrapped up in it. And a power line and a cable line looks the same to the untrained eye. So if you see a line wrapped up in a tree, stay away from it. Let somebody who's trained to do it to take care of it. If you decide you're going to try to do it yourself and there's no lines wrapped up in it, be safe. Use the proper equipment. Make sure you got chainsaw chaps, eye protection, ear protection, gloves, so you're not taking a chance with the saw if it does kick and get you injured.
Now, what other kinds of severe weather issues have you all encountered as far as taking care of as volunteer firefighters?
Well, the biggest thing, like I said, with heavy rain, you get flooding. Heavy rain, you get runoff and stuff in people's yards. You get people trying to run through water that causes issues. Then we got high winds. High winds not only gets trees down and power lines down, but you get telephone poles down too, and that takes your power out. Well, if you got your power took out, if people that have pumps and stuff at home, that floods their house. Then sometimes we've had to go in and evacuate people out of their homes because of flooding. We've had to go in to where there was, the creeks have got up in flood areas and had to evacuate people out. When you get those and you get the situation set up where you have no power and things like that, then we try to work with the OES and with Red Cross to get shelters and stuff opened up. We got places to send people. You get a lot of people, you've got to make a big enough place for them. So those we try to turn over to, like I said, to our OAS director or a Red Cross. Somebody can open up stuff and take care of stuff, because we are still fighting and doing what we need to in the field, and we have to have somebody else to take care of those people.